Good evening, everyone. My name is Father Bob Flannery, and I am pastor at St. Francis Xavier Parish in Carbondale and chaplain at the Newman Catholic Student Center at Southern Illinois University. I'm also a past president of the Carbondale Interfaith Council, serving on the Ralph Anderson Interfaith Dialogue Committee. Recently, I was elected a member of the Board of Trustees for the Parliament of the World's Religions. It is my privilege this evening to be moderator for a group of 5 panelists who have all attended one or more convenings of the Parliament of the World's Religions in the past 2 decades. They will speak about their experiences and how the Parliament has influenced their lives and ministries, and why they believe the Parliament is important and relevant today. The title of our hybrid, both in person and virtual presentation is Connecting with the Parliament of the World's Religions, an Invitation to Chicago. This was chosen since the next convening of the Parliament will be August 14th to 18th, 2023 at the McCormick Place in Chicago. It is hoped that many people from our Southern Illinois area and far beyond will take advantage of the near proximity of the upcoming Parliament, which is literally at our back door. And so now, a little bit of history about the Parliament of the World's Religions. The first meeting of the then called World's Parliament of Religions was held in Chicago in 1893 and was part of the Columbian Exposition, a forerunner of the World's Fair. It was an attempt to create a global dialogue of faiths. The 1893 World Parliament of Religions is the landmark beginning of the modern interfaith movement. Today's Parliament convenings are the world's largest and most inclusive interfaith gatherings, with an average attendance of 8,000 participants, with the highest number being 10,000 in Salt Lake City. The Parliament's intent is to strive for harmony rather than unity of the world's faiths, working together for the betterment of humanity and society. The initial event was celebrated by another gathering on its 100th anniversary in Chicago in 1993. And since then, there have been 6 other convenings: Cape Town, South Africa in 1999, Barcelona, Spain in 2004, Melbourne, Australia in 2009, Salt Lake City, Utah in 2015, Toronto, Canada in 2018, and one held virtually in 2021 due to the pandemic. The Chicago convening in August of 2023 has as its theme, a call to conscience, defending freedom and human rights. How appropriate that title is for today. The event will celebrate the 130th anniversary of the initial event in Chicago, as well as the 100th anniversary of its modern era resurgence, once again in Chicago. And now for our 5 panelists who have all been present for one or more of the Parliament convenings. From the Baha'i faith, Scott Martin; from the Jewish religion, Sarah Faye Martin; from the Muslim faith, Imam Abdul Haq; from Christianity, First Christian Disciples of Christ, Marlene Shepard; and finally, from the Carbondale Unitarian Fellowship, John Hochmeyer. And now we'll begin with Scott Martin from the Baha'i faith.
One of the things that I liked about the visit to Toronto was that prior to each of the plenary events, there was a land acknowledgement, an acknowledgement of what First Nations had been living in the area that was in the Toronto area. And so I'm in Chicago right now, and I would like to have just an example of a land acknowledgement that we have tried to use in the Carbondale Interfaith Council meetings. I would like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Potawatomi, Kickapoo, and Peoria nations, on which we are now learning, working, and serving others today. When we came back from 2018 meeting, I served also as the president of the Interfaith Council at that time, and I tried to instill that in our meetings, that we acknowledge that in the Carbondale area. Two other things that I wanted to just say that I had really really admired in that meeting in 2018 in Toronto was just the fact that how diverse the metropolis of Toronto was, and just and then having all the thousands of faith individuals come was very impressive. I also got to meet a hero of mine. He was Canadian General Romeo Dallaire, I think. His in 1994, he served as commander of a UN military unit in Rwanda. He's known as having disobeyed orders to withdraw his military unit from the field, and instead his unit helped save many Rwandans from genocide. I think there's movies about his actions in Rwanda. He also was a senator in what the Canadians have as their part of their government, and General Dallaire and other politicians came to the Parliament with the express purpose of asking people of faith, all the various faiths from around the world, to help on several things. Two of them that they thought was very important: nuclear arms proliferation and the global warming issues. Not proliferating the nuclear arms, but nuclear arms doing away with them. Both of which have, since 2018, have been in the forefront in many cases of the news. So, thank you for your time, and I'll let others talk about their experiences.
Very good, Scott, and thank you for lifting up both. Remember the people whose land we are on that were here before us, which is a beautiful tradition, but also the person that you admired with the Rwanda situation. I know for all of us, the people we met at the Parliament really made a difference in our lives and in our world. Sarah Faye from the Jewish Faith.
Thank you, Bob. First of all, I'd like to share that I have attended 3 different parliaments in different territories: Salt Lake City in the western side of this country, Toronto, Canada, and online. Online was a very unique experience. We had, in the open end of being in person, we meet people, we see people from all the cultures. We are able to talk to them personally and have a review of who we are and who they are. We are able to understand where they come from and what their story is. That's something very unique too, to be able to see people and talk to them and meet them from all over the world. To see them online, we have to study a little bit closer, just like this evening. We are online. Some of the audience is here and can discuss with us or ask questions. And some of you online will have to type it in and have it sent to us. That's a different experience. I still enjoy having the open end. One of the workshops that I attended in Salt Lake City, that was my first experience. And it was unique because I had not met people from other countries in the same manner. These ladies were from New Zealand, and they told a story of their existence, their history, their life. They dimmed the room to a very shadowed light. These women lined up in their full country outfit outfit that they would be wearing to represent the history that they were going to tell. They marched through the room, very low, soft speaking, and they began to tell us their story of their history of their country. And it was just exciting. The feeling that you can have by seeing somebody who is telling you how they exist and what struggles they must go through. It gives you such a feeling of happiness and excitement that you are able to meet them and discuss their lives and give you your life to them. It's just an experience that you should all try to go and understand. Something else that we are able to do, each time we've had a live program in the Parliament, the Sikhs will present us with a meal, their country meal. And it's generally a little spicy, but it's not too hot to eat. But they teach us how to wear a turban, and we wrap our head, and we are very quiet and solemn, and we can sit on the floor, and we eat in the same manner. They feed every person who wishes to come and join them. And like Bob and Scott had said, 10,000 people at Salt Lake City, they fed every person that attended. And it was delightful. You taste their home cooking, you taste their family meals and what it means to have that kind of friendship with everybody. Something else that I think about being in Carbondale, it's a small community, and to experience interfaith from all over the world is to listen to people from different types of life, different walks of life, and to discover how they are and to share who we are with them. It is a true learning experience. There's no other way to describe it. And the excitement builds in me that we are having one in Chicago, and I believe that everybody should try to attend. We learn about how to sustain our world because we all are the same here. Thank you.
That's perfect, Sarah Faye. Thank you. And thanks for the example of both virtual and also in person, also meeting so many people, that story about New Zealand and the people sharing their history with everyone. And finally, the langar, the Sikh meal that was provided. I think there were 5,000 that were in a big tent in the Mediterranean in Barcelona when I experienced my first one. So thank you for sharing that. And now our third speaker is Imam Abdul Haq from the Muslim Mosque. Imam Haq.
Yes, thank you, Father Flannery, and thanks to everyone else. Peace be unto you all. Our involvement, our involvement revolves around a verse in the Quran which says, "We have made you into tribes and nations, not that you may despise one another, but you may learn to know one another. Surely the most honorable view of sight in the sight of God is the one who is most regardful." Our late leader of the largest indigenous Muslim community in America, Imam W.D. Muhammad, since 1975, he championed the interfaith workings in America. And as a result of his leadership, we were involved in interfaith in Carbondale for years, since 1975. It's important for us to understand the importance of building relationships so we can discover what we have in common. I think the Parliament, in addition to just the excitement of learning about cultures, and we went to Australia in Melbourne, which was in itself a journey. I've been in the military, but I've never spent that much time in air. That distance was a long flight. But it was a very enjoyable trip, very enjoyable experience. One of the things I was impressed with was, which seems to be a common theme in the Parliament, is recognizing the rights and of the indigenous nations, those people who prior to colonization of those islands or those places around the world have lived there for years, and Parliament has gone out of its way to ensure that those rights and the inherent rights of those indigenous nations are respected and supported. The other thing, of course, was the plenary sessions where there were great performances of different cultures, dancing, music, keynote speakers. The Dalai Lama was there, and he was there and he spoke. I was also impressed by his followers. They were building some kind of, every day they built this mosaic of threads and things they were building right there. And every day you could see them working tirelessly, building this unique, I don't know what you can call it, just a unique.
Mandala.
Yes, this unique. And it was very, very beautiful to watch, and also pointed to that discipline and commitment to unity and commitment to discipline. I loved the exhibits. The exhibits were outstanding. The different cultures that those exhibits represented, and also the workshops were outstanding. The workshops allowed us to have discussions, presentation discussions, allowed us to share and to discover what we had, our commonality, and understanding our different perspectives, and coming away with a great appreciation for people that we have maybe heard about. And many times what we heard came through a filter. And so the Parliament reduces that filter. And so you can get a chance to talk to people directly, get a chance to share with people directly, to break bread with them, to have informal conversations with them. It's a great builder for for the common reality that we are one humanity under one creator, and we have one focus, and that is to make this earth and this earth the best place for everyone. So I was really happy to make that trip and be at the will of God. Hopefully I'll get to Chicago to re-experience that, and hopefully we'll encourage other people to go as well. It's a lifelong experience. It's one of the greatest experiences I've had in my lifetime, was that trip to Melbourne, to the Parliament. And I also want to thank the Interfaith Council for assisting us to go. It was such a trip. I took me, my wife, and my oldest daughter. All three of us went, and so not only did we enjoy the Parliament, but we took a few extra days to visit the rest of Australia while we were there. So it was a memorable trip, and we hope those who come to from around the world, when they come to this Parliament in Chicago, that they take time to visit just parts of the Chicago area and learn more about the city of Chicago and the various. It's a rich ethnic base in Chicago as well. Many ethnic communities there. Thank you.
That's perfect, Imam Haq. Thank you so much for those memories of the mosaic and the different peoples, having the Dalai Lama there. Another thing which I'm sure you experienced too is it's wonderful to have people from our own particular faith traditions from around the world coming together at meetings that they provide, so that you can learn from other people from your faith tradition, what they experience in terms of their faith and their particular localities. So thank you so much for that. And now we have Reverend Marlene Shepard, one of our own from Carbondale, who's now out east in Pennsylvania, but going to be returning to Kentucky, or coming to Kentucky in the near future. So Marlene Shepard, if you'd share your experience, please.
Hi, thank you so much for having me and for having this and for just lifting up the importance of this event and the presence of the Interfaith Council in Carbondale and wider Southern Illinois. where we tend to be more isolated. Events like this are just such a beautiful opportunity to kind of get out of our little bubbles, which I think have become even greater with social media in some ways than wider. I enjoy the swag. Can you see this? I'm kidding. I've still got the bag, believe it or not. I can't unfold this all. But do you remember this big banner we had? I still have that. I'm going to have to bring it back to you guys. That was from the 2009 that I attended. It was hearing each other, healing the earth was the theme. And, you know, one of the things that really struck me, one of the things that I really hadn't understood fully until that meeting was how much climate change disproportionately affects the poor. And, you know, especially as Christians, we have such a strong call to help those who are poor. And, you know, I think that was something especially that I continue to bring forward. You know, it's certainly also just our earth and how we really have to get together. We have to work together to do this, particularly as we see really a failure to adequately address the environmental crisis. Certainly our voice together on issues that are so important like this is really meaningful. It's meaningful for our faith groups, and it's meaningful for people outside of faith. So I'm so glad to see the Ralph Anderson Interfaith Dialogues back, especially, and have that. Much like what everyone has said, my favorite part was the cultural offerings. The evening of sacred music, absolutely outstanding. I saw the whirling dervishes. I had never had that experience before to see that. There was a Sikh drumming, I believe it was some kind of drumming group. With that, it was very special, meditative almost. And the exhibit hall, like I said, the swag. I came home with I'm a big reader, right? So I came home with so much stuff that I kept digesting after the event. And not only that, I mean, this exhibit hall was just huge. And you got to interact with people from everywhere. You know, I had never met someone from the Shinto religion. You know, I didn't know what that was. You know, in fact, I said, oh, well, there's going to be 200 religions represented when you go. And I said, I didn't even know there were 200 religions. Of course, there's actually more than that. But you don't realize just the diversity of the diversity that truly people of faith encompass around the world. The workshops were rich. The conversations, the group, there, I mean, it just ran the gamut. It was hard to pick in the time periods. It really was. There were so many things that you wanted to do in the different time periods. There was a couple of times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump in this one and then run over here to the next, see what, you know, talk to them just so I could get a taste of what everything was doing. And one of my favorites was, I think that they were Jain. It was example of their dancing with their mudras, the different hand symbol things they do with their hands and she explained what they mean, and she had us all get up, and anybody who wanted to participate, we did that dance, and messing up and laughing the whole time. It was so much fun. I also loved the mandala, and just like Imam Haq, seeing the beauty, the dedication to building something beautiful that you knew was impermanent. You know, it's such a great metaphor for our lives, because then they wipe that sand away, you know, after they've made this incredible, beautiful design. And you're just reminded we we have a short time here to make something beautiful of it. And I really was just touched by that. I loved the ability to mingle. I got the meal package and at the Melbourne one, and just sitting in the lunchroom with all of these different people of these different religions and sharing a meal there was really interesting. And one day, as you know, the Dalai Lama was there. His speech was wonderful. Well, one day I saw his sort of entourage of monks sitting at a table, so I went to join them.
Oops.
It seems like you're frozen, Marlene. You may need to sign off and come back on, please. Anyway, what a wonderful story about with the Dalai Lama and the monks, and we'll have to learn about that conversation you had with them. You mentioned the workshops, and there are over 500 workshops, believe it or not, at the Parliament, and the number of exhibits are just, 1,000, I'm sure. So it's just really a wonderful opportunity, and we're proud of you. You're one of our own. You were president of the Carbondale Interfaith Council, also Sarah Faye Martin and myself. I don't think I'm missing. Oh, and Scott. I'm sorry, Scott, you were as well. So we're so glad that you experienced this and can bring it back home. And so now we have our final panelist, John Holkheimer. So John, if you could introduce yourself and your interesting faith background, if you will, please.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Father Flannery. My name is John Holkheimer. I am the son of Holocaust survivors on both sides of my family, and so was born in New York right after the war and grew up in an atmosphere of a great deal of pain and loss and trying to find a place to fit in. It was not within the Jewish community that we found a home, but rather in the Ethical Culture Society, which was founded by a Reformed rabbi in 1876. And it's sort of a Unitarian Universalism from a Jewish perspective rather than a Christian one. But I've been searching all my life to find a way in which I could reconcile the religious intolerance that my parents and my extended family on both sides, or families on both sides, had experienced, to how do we move forward from here? And I found that within the confines of anyone's spiritual tradition, that was really quite difficult, because in my experience, it was always coming back to, this is why we, whoever we are special and different from them, which is, to my mind, what led to the level of intolerance, not only that my people had suffered, but in my work as a professor traveling all over the world, saw again and again in Rwanda, in Cambodia, in South Africa, to be sure, throughout the United States, and on and on and on. I came to Southern Illinois University here in Carbondale in 2006, in part because I was told that I would find a home here to explore issues of spirituality, both in my research and in my teaching. And to that end, I taught a course for many years in the honors program called Spirituality in the Human Experience. Key to that development of that course, key to the development of my own writing and research, was the opportunity to go to the Parliament of World Religions in Melbourne in 2009. I was invited to give a panel, or to host a panel there, to give a talk, which is fine in my very limited understanding of things. But clearly, to me, the great experience was being there and experiencing with other people who were experiencing for the first time, whether it was Jains or Zoroastrians, Sufis and Sikhs. Everybody mentioned the mandala, because it was such a magnificent creation, and to see the level of concentration to one little piece of color at a time being so carefully graded onto this beautiful emerging piece. And to be able to sit with people and to ask questions about issues of common concern, not as translated through an observer's experience, but rather to hear it emanating from their own, and to see the ways in which people from all over the world, from so many different traditions, were struggling with the same kinds of questions that I was. What's the appropriate thing to teach your children? How can you be a good and responsible adult in a world where intolerance is intolerable? And how do we work together to better understand each other, not in terms of now I can see more clearly, but using the word understand, which means to stand under a greater level of meaning and existence that any one of us or any one faith tradition can fully comprehend. And it's that spirit of sharing on an individual level, none of the speechifying. I mean, Dalai Lama was wonderful just to see him. It's like, my God, it's the Dalai Lama. But to speak with people, whether it's over a coffee or whether it's walking down the street or looking at the mandala together or whatever, was such an extraordinary experience, which led me to come back here to Carbondale, not only with the help of Lori Merrill and the honors program to develop this course on spirituality and human experience, but also to use that experience as a foundation for organizing 5 international conferences on spirituality, 3 in Prague and 2 in Lisbon from 2011 to 2015. And again, people came from all over the world with the same intention. Here's who I am and what I represent, but I'm here more to listen and to dialogue. And not just, I should mention, it's not just about Parliament of World Religions. After all, there are pagans there as well, there are atheists, all kinds of folks from all kinds of traditions, and some from none at all, to share with each other. And I think that is the great opportunity that the meeting next year in Chicago really represents for us who live in the Midwestern United States, to be able to listen, to share, to explore ideas and possibilities with each other outside of our normal channels of faith and meaning sharing, especially in a time dominated by fundamentalist insanity, not only here in the United States, but elsewhere. The dialogue is possible. Dialogue is necessary, not to build tolerance, but to build respect. It is through respect that we reach the ultimate goal of love.
Very good, John. Thank you so much. I mean, so many things that you make us think about, especially in terms of all those troubled areas of the world where there has been genocide or other kinds of oppression, and how we need to work for freedom and human dignity. And that's why the upcoming Parliament is going to be so helpful. I'd like to share just briefly one thing that John kind of mentioned too about the pagans or the Wiccans. I'd always heard about them and experienced some people of those faith traditions in Carbondale, but I learned more about them at the Parliament. I attended the first one in Barcelona in 2004. I went to 2 of the morning prayer services by the Wiccans, and I was just amazed and really pleased at the spirituality that was there in terms of nature and in terms of a supreme entity that might be called differently or looked upon differently, but definitely a spiritual tradition. And so that really left a lasting impression. And as I say that about morning prayer, each Parliament will have offerings, whether it's a Catholic Mass or Jewish service or whatever it happens to be with the different world religions that are offered, so people can explore that, and it's really a powerful experience. So in my role as ecumenical and interreligious officer for the Catholic Diocese of Belleville since 1998, I've been fortunate to have attended 4 Parliament convenings. First in Barcelona in 2004, as I mentioned, also in Salt Lake City in 2015, Toronto in 2018, and the one held virtually last year in 2021. I had hoped to attend the convening in Cape Town, South Africa, but with my parish starting its centennial celebration at the same time, I could not possibly attend. Besides the faith traditions of our panelists and myself that you've heard from this evening, other religions from the Carbondale Interfaith Council who were represented at previous Parliament convenings including the one held virtually in 2021 are the following: Lutheran, Greek Orthodox, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Quaker, and United Church of Christ, from which parishioner Hugh Muldoon was a presenter at one of the workshops in Salt Lake City in 2015. Now, John, thank you for sharing with us that you were also a presenter in Melbourne, Australia in 2009. And so 25 people from Carbondale, Illinois, have been represented at 5 convenings of the Parliament of the World's Religions in the past 18 years. That's phenomenal. As a community, we are grateful and are delighted to share our story of how attending the Parliament convenings has changed our lives and our interfaith involvement. Now, at this time, you're welcome to put into the chat any questions you might have. I see there's one there already, but let me offer this up to our panelists. In terms of one thing, in terms of getting there and being there with the groups from Carbondale that you were with, for those of you who are with other people, maybe some reflections on that. I know, Sarah Faye, that you were with us in Toronto. And actually before that, I'm going to say this, Salt Lake City, because I think you had quite a journey with that. If you can briefly just say a little bit, and how, in terms of the Parliament, that it really was a pilgrimage, if you will. Go ahead, please.
We had in 2015, it was decided that 3 of us would do a road trip to drive to Salt Lake City. So Maureen Pyle, Marilyn Schmigdal, and myself, we drove to Salt Lake City. It was an experience to drive out there, to drive through Wyoming, and to stop and look at the beautiful mountainside along the way, and just see part of the countryside that we did not see. And then arriving in Salt Lake City and finding our housing and going to the places. We also were able to go see the Whirling Dervish at the, I'm not even sure exactly what they call that area, where the temple is, and we were in one of the buildings that they invited anybody who wanted to come to see this. They did a program and invited as many different religions and speakers and people who could come to perform for the community who attended the Parliament. It was exciting. It was just delightful. And it was a learning session. How else can we say that?
Very good. So I also remember in Salt Lake City, we were at the Mormon Tabernacle, correct, for the music presentation. And that was very good with dancing and all of that. Great.
Yes.
Scott, how about with Toronto? I know that you were with our group there.
Well, for me, my wife and I, Debbie and I, drove all the way up to Toronto. I wanted to do that because my grandfather's farm is located just outside of Toronto, so I got to be close to the family farm, if you will. But again, driving in to Toronto, just seeing a very big cosmopolitan area was for me, pretty exciting. Much like coming to go to Chicago, if you will, to some areas. But that was our trip.
Very good. And we also had a chance to meet for meals throughout the Parliament, the five of us who were there, Paul Waterman from Epiphany Lutheran, and myself, and you and Debbie and Sarah Fay. And Sarah Fay, you stayed with, I think, your relative or cousin, I believe it was. Another question, how did the experience of the Parliament affect your personal spirituality? We've heard a little bit about that from people, but also for your faith congregations. Any of the panelists, if you want to respond to that, please. How did it affect your personal life and or ministry or commitment to your local congregation? Any of the others we haven't heard from? Perhaps Marlene, you're back, and after you do that, Marlene, maybe you can finish your story, someone had asked. But anyway, how's it affected your ministry, Marlene?
Oh, I mean, I just being involved in interfaith work in general has been such a rich blessing to my faith. It is so interesting to learn about our similarities and our differences in some of the other ways that God has revealed God's self in others that are not like us, and some of the lessons that you take from that. I remember particularly learning the 100 different names for God, Allah, in Islam. And every one, every single one of those was the God I know, and sharing that experience of, I kind of think about religions as like languages that give us a vocabulary for how to speak about something we can never truly understand, but that we all experience, that we all have in our hearts. And it's fun to learn different languages of speaking and seeing and hearing about God. With the monks at lunch, they did not speak any English, but their driver was with them, and he did. And he told me that he had all of the benefits of monastic life without the celibacy. So that was his funny little quip about that. And I had some questions for them, but they were more interested in asking me questions about the US. And so I answered a lot of questions. And one thing they asked was what was going on politically. And at that time, Obamacare was still in the political process. It had not yet been accepted. And they said, and so I was trying to explain to them, I was like, well, it's basically so all Americans can have health care. And they said, all Americans, they were confused. Well, why would that be? You're a rich country. And I said, yeah, exactly. But just that experience too of seeing yourself, your own culture from different lenses is so rich.
That's great, Marlene. So thanks for finishing that story. I'm glad you're back on. Imam Haq had to leave our presentation, but he wishes us well and is looking forward to Chicago. Marlene, you're going to be closer by. Do you think you might get to Chicago?
Oh yeah, we're planning to go. I am so excited because, it's so funny because when you asked me to speak, I was like, oh, that was just like yesterday. And then I was like, oh, wait, that was 13 years ago. But an event like that, it really does change your life. I think it was Scott who said it was one of the highlights of his life, or I can't remember who said it. It certainly was one of the highlights of my life. It's one of those things that just makes an indelible impression, gives you views you'll never see. And I've been to international countries. I've experienced a lot of different cultures, but nothing like this, where you had that just amazing ability to not just see people, but really engage with them. Like if you go to a major metropolitan area, you see a lot of different type of people, but there's not that sort of open invitation to ask questions, to listen to one another, to learn from one another. And just to have that experience on a scale, that is beyond belief, no pun intended, was amazing.
Very good. And I understand your mother's going too, right? Or had
Yes.
you told her, right? So that's great.
And she's listening. Hi, Mom.
That's great. And Sarah Faye, I know you said you're going to attend as well. So I know there are a lot of people from our area. And while I mention it, in fact, it'll kind of respond to Sarah Richards says, what would you like to see come from Carbondale folks' participation in 2023 Parliament of the World's Religions? What community-wide effects do you hope for? Well, before I answer that fully, I want to say that one of the things that I'm going to present, that we have a panel on interfaith councils at the Parliament, and hopefully not just our Carbondale experience, but maybe even with some of the other interfaith councils like in St. Louis and Metro East. They have interfaith groups, also Chicago, and maybe from different parts of the country, maybe having a panel, maybe one of our own, but where we can share what we've learned. And hopefully, in answer to Sarah Faye's, Sarah Richards' question, we can even enliven even more our presence in the faith communities here in Carbondale. We already work on projects like the Warming Center, helping with that, and Good Samaritan Ministries, which is part of our Interfaith Council, but looking at other ways that we can welcome more people. We already are hosting Afghan refugees and hopefully Ukrainian refugees as well. But we'll have to explore that, Sarah Richards, and so we will definitely put that on the agenda for tomorrow night at our Carbondale Interfaith Zoom meeting. I believe those are the only other questions from the chat. Any of the panelists want to ask one another question? Well, if not, I will mention of this statement that I already had. Or Scott, did you have something? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Bob, I just wanted to say one of the things for me, especially next year, will that be the 130th anniversary of the Parliament?
It definitely will be, and you took the words right out of my mouth because I was going to say something about that. So, so it will celebrate not only the 130th, but also the 100th when it was restarted up again in 1993. So it will be very significant. Okay. So that'll be the 30th.
Yeah, the interesting, as a Baha'i, the interesting part in 1893, the first name of Baha'u'llah, the prophet of the Baha'i faith, his name was mentioned at the first anniversary in 1893 by a Christian missionary from Lebanon at that point. And so for me, it was very exciting to kind of go back and hear that celebration, or at least recognition. Yeah.
Right. And while we're in Chicago, hopefully we can get up to the temple in Wilmette, right? That is the Baha'i temples in Wilmette, Chicago area.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So that'll be wonderful. So great. Well, let me conclude. This has been marvelous, everybody sharing. So since the convening in Australia in 2009, the Carbondale Interfaith Council, which was mentioned by one of our presenters, has helped with paying part of the basic registration fee for those attending the convenings and representing our council. The Super Saver rate until June 30th of this year is $225. And if 10 or more people register together, and we're hoping to do that as the Carbondale Interfaith Council, the fee is only $189. Now the fee goes up to $325 from July 1st to October 31st, $425 from November 1st until March 31st, and then $500 or $525 once the convening begins. So please contact me as soon as possible at rbflan@mediacom.net, and we'll make that available on the Carbondale Library website too. If you want to take advantage of the special discounted rate of $189. This is an excellent rate since a one-day pass is $100 now, or $175 later on, just for one day, and you get 5 days if you do this special rate. So in the name of the Carbondale Interfaith Council and its Ralph Anderson Interfaith Dialogue Committee, we take this opportunity to thank all of you who have attended this presentation, either in person or virtually. We are grateful to all of our panelists and to Bill Sasso, who began the initial planning for this dialogue. Also to Tim Taylor, Director of the Newman Catholic Student Center, for being our host for tonight. And finally, to the gracious assistance and publicity of the Carbondale Public Library and its staff person, Jennifer Robertson, for all they did to make this a reality for our community and beyond. People will be watching this from around the country as well as internationally. We could not have done this without all of you. Please note that the YouTube recording of this event will be on the Carbondale Library website for a limited time, and we encourage you to pass along the word so that we can make this nearby parliament of the world's religions convening in 2023 in Chicago something for all of us to consider, especially for our communities of faith and those interested in the parliament's hopes and visions. So good night, everyone. God bless you all, and hope to see you in Chicago. God bless.